Hello students, welcome to Science and Tech series with Dr. Vivek Rana. Hope all of you are doing well and your GS preparation is on right track. Topic for today's discussion is from space section because today ISRO has once again made India proud by successfully testing its crew escape system. So the CES system is a quite mandatory theme for if we want the Gaganyaan mission to roll out in the timely manner. Because Gaganyaan, we all know, is going to be India's first ever manned mission into space. Because the mission which we cover, like Rakesh Sharma or Dr. Kalpana Chawla or Sunita Williams' journey in the outer space, is mainly attributed to foreign agencies. ISRO is yet to send its first indigenous manned mission, and Gaganyaan is going to be that benchmark. So a lot of hue and cry sometimes raise that why is India investing so much amount, almost approximately 10,000 crore on sending a manned mission, and we have to justify that it's important to maintain the scientific temper, or the space endeavors are all about conquering the uncharted territory and setting the new space milestone, because currently space is no longer just about using it for socio-economic developments like the communication, navigation or remote sensing services. Today it's all about using it as the tool to show your technological as well as geopolitical supremacy, and it elevates the status of a nation. So once the manned missions are successful, the next logical steps in any space agency's endeavors are creating a permanent space station. So in today's lecture, we will give you a brief overview of all the space stations which have functioned over a period of time, because currently the Prime Minister has announced a timeline for India's next space adventures or endeavors. India's first ever international, you could say Indian space station, which has been named Bhartiya Antariksha Station, would be likely to be launched around 2035, and India has set its sight that it is going to send first ever manned mission to moon in 2014, because we have seen how Chandrayaan 3 has brought laurels to the country, and we have been successful in soft landing at the south pole of the moon, becoming the first country ever to do so. So in this theme, you need to just understand what exactly are these space stations. Now these are nothing but a large, you could say, artificial satellites which are sent in low Earth orbit. The low Earth orbit are generally orbits in 300 to 400 kilometer range. Currently all functional Earth stations are in the low Earth orbit of around 3 to 400, because there are different types of space orbits, like we talk about the polar orbit, or you could say geosynchronous, stationary orbit, high Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit. So if the basic scientific question comes that where are most of the space stations placed in Earth orbit, you have to choose the low Earth orbit trajectory, and roughly their time period revolves around 95 to you could say 96 minutes, or roughly we can say on average they make movements around in one day they make almost 15 orbits around Earth. So basically these are you can compare them to indirect with some large remote sensing satellites which are being catered for space endeavors and space research, and they contribute in direct way to economy and raising the status. So we have seen in Cold War phase that USSR and NASA, USA represented by NASA were the dominant force, and there was a close race to send human beings into the space, or to conquer moon, or to reach space. So in this journey, the first ever milestone of creating the first you could say permanent space station once again was won by Soviet Union. The Salyut series was the first ever internationally recognized space station. It was created in 1971, and this word is in Russian language. In English it translates to salute. So in a way the nomenclature is quite interesting, because we all know the space race to send first human into the space was won by Russia, and you all know it was none other than Yuri Gagarin who was the first ever individual to reach space. Even in women also it was Soviet Union only, it was Valentina Tereshkova. So as a tribute to Yuri Gagarin, the space station, because they were set almost a decade after, were named Salyut series, and the series continued. Salyut 1, Salyut 2 was a disaster, but then at least in Salyut 7 we have seen the Salyut series in Soviet era dominating the headlines. And the Rakesh Sharma, which we glorify, is also associated with Salyut 7 mission, because if you recollect your class notes, we have highlighted that it was Baikonur Cosmodrome through which Soyuz T-11 space shuttle, it was Rakesh Sharma went into space. So he went into Salyut 7 station. Because a lot of students at time tend to confuse this, that Indians might have reached Mars, Moon, Venus. With all human beings so far who have been traveling the space generally go to such space stations. Only Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are the only individuals who have reached Moon, and no other planet is yet being conquered by human space endeavors. So the Skylab, there are no guesses. We can say this was a USSR mission. And Skylab is NASA's, you could say, representation of space station. It was first and you could say last, you could say independent USA's space station, which represents once again the close Cold Era race in which the two were the competing nations. So it was the exclusive missions which carried on for some period. Currently, they no longer function, because you have to understand currently only the International Space Station Tiangong are the functional space stations. The rest are just part of history. Today they have already been decommissioned. Now, after the breakup of USSR, Russia's independent space station is counted as Mir, and it functioned almost till 2001, and it was a quite successful mission in its own way. And currently the all limelight is hogged by the International Space Station, which continues to function till date without any break, and it's almost, you could say, over 2 decades, and the mission is still going strong. So it's always permanently, you could say, human residents are there. And if you take an average, even in 2023, 11 cosmonauts are stationed. And if you compare with Tiangong 6, so 2020 is quite remarkable year in which 17 individuals are currently in space. So far, otherwise, we have seen rough average of, even other functions were there, 10 to 12 individuals used to be there in some total. So they don't need to microscopic way note down just micro facts. You just have to understand a basic question which can be framed from such themes are, they might give you these names and associate what does it represent, or they just gonna give you a correctly matched or incorrectly matched pair theme. So in ISS, it's not that it's a total burden of NASA or Soviet Union, it's a collaborative project. And this is a paradigm shift that after era of competing, they better realize that it will be a lot better if we closely cooperate in such peaceful or scientific endeavors, and it will be overall beneficial to mankind. So ISS is a true example of it. Though after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, now ISS future is also hangs in balance, and there are chances that this mission is not going to last long. Because Russia has already announced this once again a new international space station which will be totally Russian. It goes with the name Nauka. Now in ISS you have to understand there are 5 agencies which play a role. We know it's Russia's Roscosmos, USA is always represented by NASA. Apart from that, European Space Agency is also part of ISS, and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, popularly known as JAXA, is also a part of it. And apart from that, Canadian Space Agency is also part of it. So basically you have to memorize these 5 nations. Generally, we tend to associate International Space Station with P5 nations, but there is slightly, there is an entry of Japan, and even Canada is also represented. And typically the European Space Agency is agglomerate of 20 plus different European nations, so they are represented as European Space Agency. And now there is an important part that China has, you could say, taken a giant leap in space missions with its MAD mission. Recently we had seen that it has also sent that Tianwen to Mars mission. The rover mission of Chang'e have dominated headlines. So here once again, the Tiangong series has been going on from 2011, 2016 and currently as well. Even though they have faced just few hiccups as well, but still they can claim that they have fully functional, and currently China is one of the countries which is running its own independent space station. So India will be trying to emulate similar example with its Bhartiya Antariksha Station in 2035. So you can say, if you ask that which of the following countries have historically been associated with international space stations, so these are the countries which you have to mug up, and preferably you should be able to differentiate what are the specific names. Now the question mark arises, what exactly are they investing in, why are they putting human lives at risk for such missions? They could have easily just scattered the data to the remote sensing satellites. So here you have to understand that human beings tend to are looking forward to colonize different planets as well, and these are the stepping stones, or indirectly we can say these are preparatory missions which prepare you for the larger goals, or you could say over ambitious missions of colonizing the outer, you could say, planetary system or inner planetary systems. So basic experiments which individuals who are sent there are carrying out mainly revolve around the microgravity experiments, the weightlessness experiences, and then the astrophysics experiments, which are the theoretical main domain, and how the body physiology, biochemistry are monitored, because when these cosmonauts are sent, their vital parameters are closely monitored, and they try to reduce how the aging is affecting them, what is the impact of radiation on outer space, you could say rays on their body. So these are basically some scientific endeavors in which you are not just limited to what you could say the scientific or space endeavors, even the human internal anatomy and physiology also play crucial roles, because we might get some new line of treatment or some new understanding how life has evolved. And apart from that, these missions are not just totally civilian missions, they have that intelligence component as well. We have seen clearly in case of Salyut series that these were also military reconnaissance missions. In simple terms, we can say they were used for intelligence gathering as well. So basically we can say that these missions can be used for militarization of space as well. There is no exaggeration in saying, even though the primary purpose always have been tilted towards the civilian needs. So basically when India is going to launch its international space station, it will also have similar objectives. But there are some possible challenges which this mission is likely to face in its endeavor. The first and foremost is going to be the mobilization of funds, because we have seen India is still a developing country, and all such countries who have already conquered it, they have a liberal budget for space endeavors. Even though in last, you could say, few years we have seen that finally government is using space for wider purposes, and it's not hesitant to invest liberally, because in Gaganyaan mission also over 10,000 crores were allocated, but this mission will require even more mobilization of funds. So in a way, the privatization of space and the recent commercialization of space, which is taking at rapid strides, hopefully we will be able to manage the financial resources which will be in need of the hour to execute such mission on a large scale. The other is going to be the technical know-how. Just like we have seen today that India has successfully carried out the CSC experiment, and other experiments have already been done in case of Gaganyaan. So similar protocols and the pros and cons would have to be evaluated, and India would need to carry out a large-scale pre-demonstrative missions to finally execute such mission. So basically it will require a lot of R&D and as well as the technical know-how of some other state-of-art technologies, which hopefully ISRO is not going to take a lay down and is going to do in record-breaking time. So basically every time whenever the challenge is thrown, ISRO has shown its progress, and it has showcased that any technology denied to India, it has the capability to master in the shortest as well as most economical scale. The third challenge which this mission is likely to face is that in case of ISS, there was an era of collaboration, which was seen that how space agencies, due to larger, you could say, space objective, they used to cooperate with each other. But currently we are seeing that due to economics involved, we have seen that 17th Psyche mission opening possibility of mining the asteroids even and bringing the resources on Earth. So today the space era, there is no exaggeration in saying, is entering into a competitive phase where we will see even space domain being used as a next mode of warfare. Even the anti-satellite test by India, which goes by the name of Operation Shakti, is a clear example that we cannot just expect that in future also the space is going to be just a domain where all countries will rise above their political interest or national interest and cooperate on larger human goals. So in this case, we are least likely to get support from any of the powerhouses, because currently the space era is era of competition and conquering the new milestones. So we have to be ready for that. And also it will require some for next level planning to execute these missions on deadline, because currently already we are running late of the Gaganyaan mission as well, because due to COVID there has been a, you could say, 2-3 year delay in almost all a mission which was planned as per our original roadmap, because India recently celebrated that 75 years of independence, and original timeline of Gaganyaan even was to commemorate it, coincide with that event. But we are late by few years, but it does not stop space endeavors to end in this way. Also, we can say that such missions generally suffer from a precursor, or you could say a long impending problem of long gestation period. Generally, whenever such missions are announced and timelines are announced, they suffer a lag and some or the other complication develops during the mission, because we have seen even the top-notch agencies, when they first sent their first ever humans, this was the next milestone, but it took them almost more than a decade to successfully execute. Like just as we have mentioned about the Salyut story or the Skylab or International Space Station, because these all were much glamorized mission, they were announced almost a decade earlier. So in this case also, we are just a decade away from 2035, so it will take a lot of, you could say, next level of planning and mobilization and administrative skills and acumen to execute it. And hopefully, once we have achieved this milestone, the next mission is going to be colonize Moon by 2014. So in a nutshell, we can say these missions are, even though they do not directly cater to any socio-economic benefit or immediate commercial gain, but in long run, they establish your space agency's authority over next generation technologies and help you emerge as a better space power in right sense. And today, India is looked upon by a lot of developing countries as a leader in space domain, and we are giving a tough nut to almost all major space agencies in terms of economics and scale. And any uncharted territory is being slowly and gradually captured by India with technical expertise as well as economics of scale. So let's hope that ISS and other missions continue to prosper for larger good of humanity and give new insights. At the same time, we would wish that ISRO emulates their success story and sets new global benchmarks. So I hope you got a fair idea of the space stations and the basic understanding what space stations are, at what orbit do they function, what have been their history, and why is India entering currently into the fray. If you have any specific doubts, feel free to ask them in comment section. We will revert. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.